Today is June 25th, 2020. Welcome to the Plumbing Piping Examining Board meeting. At this time, I would ask our panelists and our people in the meeting to put their phones on silent at this time during the meeting if they could. If not, they can mute themselves and take it outside. At this time, I would like to have the board look at the minutes of our last meeting on February 6th, 2020, and ask for a motion to move the minutes forward.
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Jay.
Second by Chris Bowman.
And
Thank you,
who made
Chris.
the motion? I'm sorry.
Jay did.
Jay.
Jay made the motion.
I was looking down. Okay,
Sorry.
that's okay.
Okay, any discussion on the minutes? All in favor say aye.
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 Deny? So moved. Okay, at this time, I would like to take the, we're going to move the CE requirements and documentation stuff forward in the meeting, if it's okay with everybody, because everybody's got a busy schedule today. The proposed well drilling and geothermal regs. I'm sorry, Jay?
I'm sorry, I should have been on mute. I was talking to someone else. Pete's having a problem logging on. He's having difficulty. So I just sent him another link. I sent him my link to try and get on.
Okay, great. Jim's probably looking to try to get on as well, too. So we're going to move the CE discussion forward in this meeting, if that's okay with everybody.
Yep. Yes.
Okay with that, Melissa?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, great.
But
Okay. All right, just want to make sure everybody's on board, so we're good. Okay, so the discussion is to allow virtual to occur for the continuing education CEUs to the end of this year, going both not only virtual, but to continue classroom participation classes as well. That's what this is all about, this motion.
So can I make a motion? And then we can
Make a
discuss
motion?
it? Can
Sure.
I make a motion and then we can all discuss it?
Sure.
Unless anybody has a problem with that? Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So I would like to make the motion that says the Plumbing and Piping Work Examining Board hereby requests that the Commission seek an amendment by executive order to section 20-334D-1C2 of the regulations for a temporary approval to allow for plumbing continuing education, virtual live interactive classroom online classes, in addition to that which is already approved. The approval should be in accordance with the document entitled Instructions, quote, Instructions and Requirements for Approved Providers Requesting Temporary Approval for an Online Virtual Live Interactive Classroom, end quote, dated May 20th, 2020. This executive order shall expire on December 31st, 2020.
Second.
Do we have a second? Do we have any discussion?
I don't approve.
Okay.
And that was
Jay.
Jay. Okay, sorry.
Was Jay, yes.
Good morning.
Morning, Vinny.
Good morning.
Like the,
Given a lot of thought to the logistics of hosting online training, doing it, having done it as a student, as an instructor, just the problems we're having this morning, getting people on. We can't even get all the board members that want to be on. If, two things. One is, I would say, I'll make another motion later to simply suspend the CEUs for the rest of the year. And if CEUs were to go online, why can't we host it the same way the CHRO hosts the sexual harassment training, where it's posted people log on. I mean, this is a program that every worker in the state has to take. It's available for free. It's sufficient to get the information to the craft worker. So if you're going to go online, why not just post it on the DCP website like CHRO does with their training?
I have two comments about that. Number one, it's not mandatory, Vinny, that everybody does it. It's an option for people that want to do it. You can still do classroom once once we're allowed to have classroom safely. So it's an option for a lot of the younger generation that likes to do online. We've all been operating online for the past couple of months, running our businesses. And the second thing is, I'm not convinced that I'm not going to compare the CHRO program to our CEUs. I do think the instructors need to do it by Zoom, and that the instructors need to see, according to all the guidelines that were pointed out, the students that are participating. And I also think that last thing I'll say is I also think that it sends a bad message that, that we suspend CEUs, because we've actually been fining people for the last couple years for not being current with their CEUs. So I think that sends a mixed message from the DCP. Those are my comments. Anybody else?
This is Joyce. I agree with Melissa. And I mean, if our children can go to school online, and if a kindergartner or a first grader can participate in classes online, I'm pretty sure that a licensed plumber can do the same.
Well, regarding the kids going to school, my own son, many others, they weren't being taught, simply put. They logged on, they did a lesson, they were self-taught. So if a first grader can teach themselves, then a licensed plumber can teach themselves. The information is there. It's really a matter of ensuring that it gets to the craft worker, that they verify that they went through it. It's already offered through other state programs. It should be offered the same way consistently throughout the government.
I disagree. We're only talking about
Chris Bowman, I'd like to say
In
something.
these times, I say, there's been unemployment going on. People are, are losing money. I make a motion that we waive the fees then, or lower the class, or have a cap on it. $25, something reasonable.
No, people are getting more money with the $600 stimulus to stay home than actually go to work, depending on the job they're doing. I disagree with that.
Okay,
What about
why not
about the
give it for
older-
free then? Through the state website, give it for free. It takes all these arguments off the table.
Can we have
what
one-
about the older members? What
Wait a
about the
minute,
older people? For Christ's
Wait a
sakes,
minute,
what
can
about
we
the
have
older
one-
people?
Yeah, they don't have computers and you're gonna force them in a classroom and kill them. Brilliant.
Older members, older gentlemen, older plumbers that are great workers and great plumbers and not computer savvy. I'm sorry. I'm 61 years old. I have to ask my grandchildren how to run half this crap. I had a hard time getting on. I am not computer savvy. It'd be a burden for our older gentlemen. It's hard enough to keep them wanting to go to the classroom live as it is, never mind going on a computer and doing it on a computer. I think it's a complete sham. Terrible thing. Why we can't just put this off for 1 year until we get our feet back on the ground and let them do it in person like they've always done.
You're forcing us to accept the liability. You're creating a liability by the DCP to mandate that if you can't do it online, you're gonna do it in person. The first person that can be traced to a group that was sick, that organization will be held liable. Yours, ours. This is foolishness.
Then if they hit the wrong button, then they're going to be off the meeting and then get fined the next year because they didn't finish and they thought they finished and they thought they did it. Please, come on, guys.
It's
We
not
suspended
Let's
the
be
school
reasonable
year.
here.
We suspended the school year Apprenticeship trainings were suspended, but we suspend hundreds of hours of core training, but we can't suspend 5 hours of continuing education. This is just a method so that people can make the revenue off these CEUs. It's unfair, it's foolish, and it's reckless.
Vinny, you've been trying to eliminate CEUs, and I disagree with that too. So let's stick to the issue right here. This is an executive order that the governor has put into place through the end of this year only to allow it as and we're asking to allow as an option. Are you guys saying from 777 who prides themselves on the safety and the training of your members, union members, put yourselves out there as better trained, and you're actually saying you want to lower your standards? Is that what I'm hearing?
Exactly. Don't ever speak for me again, please. No, we're not lowering our standards. We're protecting everybody. This information can be put online, given to every single craft worker, disseminated fairly, and probably get more participation. All right, but please don't speak for me again. I don't speak for the union. I don't care to say that I'm against education in any manner. This is a foolish and reckless thing that's being proposed. Simply put, it isn't necessary. It's only necessary for those that wish to make revenue off it.
Hey, Chuck,
Yes.
can the public make a comment right now? Is that acceptable?
I don't see why not.
All right, well, Mike Rosario would like to speak, and he's having trouble speaking.
Right,
Is there a way to get on?
if Chuck tells me when to unmute people, I can go ahead and do that. I'm just kind of waiting on him to let me know, who and when.
Okay.
I can do that.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks,
Can
Jay.
he be
Yes,
unmuted, Chuck?
yes, of course. Mike Rosario, please, Karen.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mike, can you hear us? Can you
Yep.
talk?
Yep, can you
Okay.
hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, so the comments that I want to make are the online training is going to be limited to 25 students. We have 3,000 members. If I do 3 classes a week, it's going to take me 40 weeks to run all our members through this online. Before the pandemic, we would normally start end of January having our CEUs through the course all the way up to October. And we'd have different size classes, and we'd be able to run them just about every day. So I don't know how the state or the plumbing board expects 777 to put all our members through this. It's already June 25th. We still do not have a sanctioned online training for CEUs yet. How are we supposed to get this done? 3,000 members. How? I don't get it. And you are correct, Melissa. 777, me, Mike Rosario, I'm 100% against continuing ed for plumbers. I sit on the heating board. I've been on the heating board for 20 years. And when it came up at the heating board, we unanimously shot it down every time. The pipe fitter license is more dangerous than a plumbing license. And CEUs, I just don't get why we have CEUs for a plumber. The code very rarely changes in plumbing. How many gallons of water comes out of a new faucet? How many gallons gets flushed on a new toilet? I don't agree with it, but I accept it. But I do not see how I'm gonna be able to get all of my members through this in a timely fashion. It's impossible. Not only is it impossible, it's a financial burden on me. I got a lot of issues dealing with this pandemic. And as far as the online classes for kids, my son just graduated high school. He did online training, Middletown High School, 2 hours a day. That's all he had to do. And if you look across the entire United States, it's a systematic failure for online classes. We were not set up for this. Alls we're saying is suspend it for this year. Let everybody regroup to come up with a plan. The plan that's in place right now with this executive order, the time frame is too short. We don't have enough time. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Mike.
Aaron, Chris, I disagree. I think this should go through. It's an option. As far as that sexual harassment training, that's a requirement or a policy that the employer has to do, not continuing ed. That's a separate issue, Vinny. We discussed that in meetings before. I think this is an option to get us through during this pandemic, and I think we should go forward. And yes, the younger kids want to do online. The older guys don't. I'm just like Pete. I'm 61 years old, okay? I had to learn how to do it. Everybody can learn how to do it. You know, you guys had problems with it before. You guys rectified them in 777 and move forward. I think we just have to take this, use it as a training tool, move forward till the end of the year, and then hopefully we'll be back into the classrooms.
Hey, Chuck, another public member would like to speak.
Jay, who would that be, please, so we know?
Kimberly Glassman from the Foundation of Fair Contracting.
Thank you. Karen, could you open up Kimberly Glassman's to speak, please?
Hi, Kimberly.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning, Kimberly.
Unfortunately, it seems to be my camera isn't on, but you could turn it on if you wanted. Otherwise, I'm happy to just speak through the computer if that's easier for you.
That's the way it should be working.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah.
Thank you for allowing me to address the members of the board who are present this morning. My name is Kimberly Glassman, for the record. I'm the director of the Foundation for Fair Contracting. For those who are who have not heard of my organization before, we're a 501c5 labor management organization that's been in Connecticut since 1992. We monitor public construction projects, federal, state, municipal construction projects for compliance with federal and state labor laws, particularly focused on prevailing wage projects. And I am concerned. I wanted to log in and observe this meeting this morning because my organization is concerned about this particular issue of moving these classes into an online format for a few reasons. One is we have heard from, and I don't believe Pamela Brown is on the call, but if she is, she can certainly speak to this. But we understand that some of the investigations for compliance and enforcement of occupational licenses has been suspended. Some of the field work that the investigators do has been suspended during this pandemic. So that means that there's less enforcement of these licenses that's going on these projects throughout the state, and that is concerning, though we understand due to the pandemic, it's safety is the #1 priority for all folks, including our state investigators. So we want to make sure that they're safe. But we're asking folks to renew their licenses, and for the plumbing license, that means that they have to be, that their CEs have to be up to date. And we're asking them to renew, even though the state isn't doing all of these field visits to make sure that folks are complying with the license. So that's #1. It's already hard to ask folks to renew every year when they say, well, I've never been asked to produce my license on a project site. I've got folks who are unlicensed working on project sites. It's not fair. And if their compliance isn't up to date, if the state can't make these field checks, then I think that's #1. I think that is an issue for workers, and they deserve to make sure that they deserve to know that the state is out there enforcing these licensing laws. And the other issue that I think was brought up was standards and fees. Ms. Sheffy had indicated in her comments that the governor has an executive order on this. He does not. That's why the board has this on the agenda. The executive order was around online instruction for traditional school. That does not, that EO did not extend to the CE classes. That's why it's on the agenda here today. So there's no executive order on this
That's
issue.
why it was part of my motion, Kimberly. I tied it into that executive order.
Okay, well, I'm just going to finish my comments and you can certainly jump in afterward. But I wanted to just clarify that there's not an executive order on this right now. And in fact, my organization has been speaking with the governor's office pretty consistently for the past couple of months about this issue and making clear that we don't agree with it, that we find it to be very problematic, and we're going to continue our advocacy efforts to the governor's office. We've also spoken with the commissioner and the deputy commissioner of DCP and expressed the same, some concerns with the moving of the CE into an online format. And the other issue is that if folks cannot, if they're not comfortable going into a classroom right now, because we're in the middle of a global pandemic, and they're also not comfortable accessing the online software, or they have trouble using the online software, then potentially they're not going to meet that CE requirement to renew their license this fall. And that is a big problem too. And they could be fined for that. So we want to make sure that those folks are not at a disadvantage. And then lastly is, I'm also concerned, and I want to, for the record, state this, this is a public meeting, and I thought that Mr. Moore's motion that if your guys are gonna push this new precedence through of moving the CE classes into an online format, if you're all that dedicated to doing that and pushing that through, well, Mr. Moore made a motion that that you may also suspend the fee structure for those classes, and that got pushed back pretty decisively. And to say that, well, folks have stimulus checks so that they could use that money, I think that is incredibly disingenuous, incredibly dangerous. That to suggest that people use money that could be used for their groceries, for their mortgage payments, for rent, for basic necessities in the middle of a pandemic, that they would use those monies to pay a fee to take an online class so they can continue maintaining a license, so they can continue working in the state of Connecticut, is extremely troublesome. I would suggest again that you guys are on the record on this. I would suggest again that if you are not movable, and that the few folks on here who are committed to moving forward this motion today, if you're going to do that, then you've got to suspend the fee structure for those classes too. You can't have it both ways. So I'm going to be observing for the rest of this meeting and taking notes, and I will be continuing my conversations with the governor's office and with the commissioner and deputy commissioner of this agency. But I want to say that so far I'm really troubled by some of the comments I've heard today. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Chuck,
Yes, Richard.
this is Richard Hurlburt. I just want to remind everybody that the plumbing board continuing education is kind of unique because we're in a 2-year cycle for continuing education. So for this year, the renewals of October 30th, the only persons that need to have the CE done are contractor license holders. The journey person license holders are not required to have the CE done until October 30th of next year, because our curriculum outline is for the 2020-2021 period. It's a 2-year period. Contractors take it in the odd year, and then it's the even year, and then the journeymen take it in the odd year. Journeymen can take it this year, so they have it done before next year's renewal, but right now, only contractors are mandated by law to have it done by October 30th of this year, the even year for the 2020-2021 CE period. So that might be something of interest to everyone. We're not looking for all plumbing and piping license holders to have it done this year. It's only the contractors that are mandated by law to have it done in the even year.
Richard, do we know how many contractor licenses this year will be part of this CE? Do you have a number at all, and perhaps how many have?
I have to run a report about it.
Okay.
I think it's about 2,690, Chuck, somewhere around that.
For contractor license holders?
P1s in the state of Connecticut. Yeah, I did a little Excel spreadsheet yesterday. It's about 2,690.
That sounds
Close
about
to it.
right.
Give or take one or two.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people to get it 3-4 months.
How many have already gone through? Do we know from PSI yet how many went through after we approved the curriculum back in the early part of this year? How many have already gone through it, percentage-wise?
No, I mean, we have to run a report to find out how many people have taken the continuing education to date.
Okay.
Can I remake my motion to suspend the fees if we're going to move forward? I'd like to amend that.
You've got a motion on the floor. If you want, then we'll have to vote on the amendment first, if you're making an amendment.
Yeah, I'd like to make an amendment to Melissa's vote no on my motion.
Okay, do we have a second on, do I take a second on Jay's motion or no?
I'll second Jay's motion.
And that was to suspend the fees?
Suspend the fees.
Chuck, can I ask a question? This is Joyce.
Yes.
If we suspend the fees, who absorbs that financial loss, and what happens to the revenue? Like, where was it going originally?
The fees for the classroom instructions, I would obviously assume it's the providers.
So are the providers prepared to offer the classes at no charge?
I don't know. We haven't heard from them yet. We can include them in this discussion.
I think I originally heard Jay suggest that maybe the fees be reduced. So as long as we can cover the expenses of the providers in the online format, then
I would like to add, I don't think we regulate the fees. We just come up with a curriculum outline, and persons that want to teach it for whether they want to teach it for free or whether they want to charge as a private school. So I don't know how you could have authority to spend any fees that providers charge.
No, a quick and easy answer is to provide it for free, like the CHRO does in response to Mr. Bowman. It's not an employer program. Employers are responsible to see that their workers take this. And if every worker in the state can take that training, why can't the craft people take this training online for free?
Well, the problem with that, Vinny, is we used to have a systemized curriculum that was posted on the website that everyone had to follow, but that didn't happen this year. So everyone's teaching their own curriculum that was already approved.
No, it's a standard curriculum. They're all the same.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. And it was mandated that way.
Not an outline guideline, but people can add to that.
That's fine. You can take a combination of the different programs, amalgamate them, as long as the information is covered. I don't see the problem. It's about disseminating the information to ensure that the mechanic has the most updated information. That can be done easily. And it's also probably more comprehensive. And as you said, if online is such a great access, well, and we already do it for another agency, there's no reason it cannot be done. And it should be done.
I guess I'm confused by two things that one thing Kim said is we're asking people to do something. We all have to run our businesses and live our lives, and we've all been trying to figure it out, and it's been a hardship on everyone. But that doesn't lower the standards. Like, you still have to renew your driver's license. You still have to pay for our sales and use tax. We still have to pay our major contractor licenses. We still have to pay all the other state licenses. So I'm not sure why that comment has any relevance, that, yeah, they still have to pay for their CEUs. It's like everything else that everybody has to work around. But the other thing is, it is a hardship for everyone. And I don't understand Mike's comment of, if you have all these members, but it's only your P1s, he's saying he can't get it done in that time frame. So those are two different things. Cost is out of it. He's saying he can't get that many people approved within the time frame. So if everybody else can do it and we're offering options, I don't see why we have the ability to regulate funds, like Richard said, and everyone's doing the best they can to work around these issues. Online's available for everything. Joyce just graduated a whole senior class at Wesleyan. Right, Joyce?
Correct.
So 5 hours of a plumbing CEU seems like it's definitely doable for P1s.
Plumbers were doing fine before we began continuing education.
That's a separate issue. Right now, we're just talking about allowing it to be done virtually until the end of this year.
Well, it's not a separate issue because as craftspeople, we're responsible to construct to the latest codes. And if we don't, the inspector is going to let us know. And you're forgetting that if you foster a program that forces people that are in compromised conditions to sit in groups of 10 or 5, it's a huge liability. You can erase all of that potential for death, terrible illness, by posting this information online. It can be done, and it should be done.
We're not forcing anyone to do it in any which way. And honestly, if somebody can't do it because they have a health issue, they come
You have
before
to do it. You can't do it online. You got to go to a room with people in it. You're fostering liability on the organizations. And to answer a previous question, we don't charge our membership. So we're not a revenue generator over this. If you want to put the information out there, put it out there for free. If the information is that important, and then you can get a huge amount of participation because everybody can get online instead of worrying about doing 25 at a clip, 1,000 people can do it in a week. You can get comprehensive coverage in a safe manner. And, $100 some, $200 some, $50 for a class. When the renewals are $90 and $150, it costs as much to take a 5-hour class as to renew your license now. It's counterintuitive to force people to go into groups nowadays when the science says this will spread disease. Science tells us that this will spread disease. The way you're setting it up with these different options is I can't even come up with the word. Put it online for free.
Irresponsible.
You have,
Mr. Chairman, can I speak, please?
Yes, Mr. Bowman.
Vinny, you said that your union members don't pay for the continuing education,
That's correct.
but it's included in their union dues?
No, I don't. No, training is a separate entity. It is not part of the union. Training is a ship unto itself. It's a cost to the training center. One we have absorbed for 10 years readily. I'm not against any form of training. Some of the stuff that we've done over the years and having designed and delivered the CEUs and being a craft worker like yourself, it's redundant. It's not so important that we need to force this issue right now. It's more important that we protect these workers. They're going to come to a room from a job site that may or may not had good protection on it, right? Somebody's going to get sick from this. It's just science. It's a real thing. Understand that. When you force this,
get sick working on the job sites that your people are on, right? Everybody's on job sites.
Exactly. And then they're going to come into a room with a retiree and kill them. What in the world are you thinking?
Vinny, this is stuff the governor has bringing people back to work. I mean, we're all trying to figure it out. Chuck, you have 2 people with hands up.
And also, there is a Zoom webinar chat. I'm not sure if the board members are able to see that, where people are weighing in.
Oh, okay.
I can let you know who's weighing in and what they're saying, but if you guys can't see that, I'm not sure.
Chuck, can you open the floor to Mike Rosario? He'd like to speak again, please.
Yeah,
Marcie.
we'll bring everybody in. We'll start with Mike Rosario again, please. Mike, go ahead, if you could, Karen. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. Go ahead. Oh.
Okay, yep.
Yeah.
So obviously there's strong opinions on both sides of this equation here. So what's the plan? Chuck, just me and you. I don't need a whole lot of people chiming in on this. What's the plan? Has the plumbing board, the chairman, or the state of Connecticut contacted any providers to make sure that online training is going to start? When is it going to start? And why is this being rushed all of a sudden? I feel like that this is getting crammed down everybody's throat today. And I don't understand why. If someone could explain to me why.
Well, as a proponent of continuing education, Michael, as you know, I feel that going online and in class is okay. We're in a situation, unprecedented situation right now, as you know, and this was an alternative way to bring an online opportunity for not only all providers, because all the kids, including my son and sons that are participating in their programs at school, do get taught this way as well. This is why we brought it to the plumbing board. This is why we're here today, Michael, to discuss this. This is not my plan to do this. This is to bring it in front of the board. And this is just a temporary situation to December 31st of 2020 here to go that route, to give a choice. You can still do your in-class or you can do your online situation. So this is where we're at today, so we can all discuss this.
Yeah, and I understand that. So you heard my concern. How am I going to get a certain amount of people through continuing ed by a certain time frame without breaking the law, without putting my members in a position where they could be fined because they didn't do the continuing ed? All I'm asking for is give us a little time to try to get set up. That's all we asked for. We said, just suspend it for this year. We're not saying get rid of it forever. Just suspend it so we could regroup and try to get some protocols in place. You know, I'm trying to open up our apprenticeship again, okay? Our apprenticeship, our school has been closed. So now I have to spend all this money to reopen my apprenticeship school. I have to have somebody there to do a temperature test. After the school closes, I got to bring in a cleaning facility to sanitize the whole school. I have to limit the classroom sizes. I have to hire more teachers because the classroom sizes are smaller. I have to split them up in all different parts of the building. This is a major financial burden on me just trying to open up my apprenticeship. Now I have to try to regroup and figure out how I'm going to do this online training for my membership, or how am I going to get more bodies in the school to do continuing ed in person, which is a bigger burden because now I have to open the school up on Saturdays and Sundays, because during the week when my apprentices go to school, I won't have the room because I have to split up all the classrooms. So all I'm asking for, give me some time to regroup.
You know, this is a board decision, Mike. I can't make that decision for the board, as you know. So, I mean, it's something to discuss with everybody else here and get their input as well.
Mike, I agree with that, and I'm pleading to the board. You've heard my concerns.
Hey, Mike, we have a lot of people that want to continue this conversation as well. Maybe we can come back to this, but let's listen to what the other people that are sitting outside this meeting would like to talk about as well. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, I have no problem.
I have a question for when they do speak. And Mike touched on how we need to sanitize the school and have protocol with that. I'm just curious if they have something implemented, if they're going to, you know, temperature check as people come in and out, if they're going to sanitize the building as people leave, what their plans are to keep people safe and healthy. That's a question when they give their pitch here. So, go ahead, Chuck.
You know, Jay, that's a good question, because that's really all going to be with DECD, what is required,
That's right.
you know, the 50% rules, the distancing, social distancing, all that stuff has to be brought into this when people are doing the in class. So that's good.
Right. It's not just bringing people in a room and giving them a class. There's a protocol that they have to follow once they go in that classroom and once they exit the classroom before another class enters. So I'd like to hear what their plans are if they have one.
Great, Jay. Okay. All right, Karen, can we start bringing in people from the chat?
Oh, Marcie, I'm gonna go to her.
Okay.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, board members, Commissioner Siegel. Thank you for sitting in on this. We appreciate it. And thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. I'm the director of the Construction Education Center. We do support the moving of continuing education online for several reasons. First, we've been asked for years now by our students to provide classes online for continuing ed. There is a great deal of contractors and journey people out there who would like to do classes online. I think this is a great opportunity to try to see going forward if it's something that would work in the future, because prior to COVID, the governor did propose a bill to the legislature to allow continuing education for more professions, including construction industry online. So this would be a really great opportunity to see if that would work. Most states in our country do have continuing education for tradespeople online. This isn't something that is a new thing for the industry as a whole. We did finish up our apprentice year virtually online. We were able to finish our apprentices through using Zoom classrooms and having them learn and actually proctor tests remotely online for them. So it's something that, you know, we were not set up to do at the time, but we have been able to do. We figured it out, and it works. It does work, because there's been a lot of talk about the CHRO program, which is much different. I will agree with other board members who said it's much different than continuing education. The thing with having virtual online classes rather than just a posted PowerPoint presentation is you have an instructor there that you can ask questions. You can still get that camaraderie of a classroom virtually. And I think that we have to also remember that construction has been mandated by the governor as an essential industry. And we're sending our tradespeople out into their job sites without their continuing education, which has been deemed necessary by the state for them to have. And I think we need to do everything that we can to provide them with the best continuing education programs that we can. And that is that's my pitch.
I got a question, Marcie.
Yeah.
So how much do you typically charge when you have an in-person? Is there going to be a variable between the online charge and the in-person charge for the class? I mean, because I know you have to rent a room and you have all the overhead when you rent, you know, when you put on a personal class versus the overhead on an online class. Is there going to be a difference in price, or will you still charge the same?
Well, you actually don't necessarily have a variable, Jay, because we do have a classroom in our building, and we do have
right, you have
where we do rent from. So there's not necessarily a variable. You still have to pay an instructor, and you still have to, you know, pay, you know, a Zoom subscription fee. So there are still costs that you will have to deal with. So I wasn't planning on doing a different cost. I wasn't planning on charging something different.
Okay. How much is the class going to cost a plumber, a P1 this year, whether online or in person? What's your cost?
You know, it's been so long. I'm going to double check that if you wouldn't mind. Last year we were charging $165.
Okay. And now I know you have satellite offices. Isn't it you guys do the satellite offices or classrooms, or is that another school entity?
We don't have a satellite office, Jay, but we do, and we have rented hotel rooms in different parts of the state. So
Right.
license holders who live in Stratford won't have.
Yeah, and that's kind of my point. I mean, if you have overhead where you got to rent a room and things, I mean, wouldn't online be less? The $165 you're charging is more than the renewal of the license.
Well, no, we still have rent to pay, Jay. So we do have that cost. It's not, we don't own our building.
Okay. Well, yeah, just my point is it costs more to take the class than it does to renew the license. And I think that costs more than to take the test for the license at PSI, I'm sorry.
Well, that was our cost last year. If you hold on one second, let me see what we have here.
While she's looking that up, all providers, like Mike had said, have additional expenses with cleaning and a lot more sanitizing, temperatures, things like that. That's a hardship for everybody, not only providers, but all businesses that we've been working around.
And actually, Jay, you did, while I'm looking this up, you did make the point of asking about in-person classes. And I'd like to touch on that too for a moment, if I may. And this is a different board that we're discussing, but I just want to let you know about this. Oh, and I'm sorry, the price is $125 this year. Because we went, I thought there was a drop. We went down in hours, so we went down in our price. So the electrical board is now allowing classes in person if you can adhere to DECD guidelines. And we do adhere to DECD guidelines. We have our certificate to begin operating. We have measured out our classroom so that actually our seats are a little bit more than 6 feet apart. Our instructors will be wearing face shields. We have contactless infrared thermometers because we're a nonprofit organization. So these thermometers were provided to us by the state of Connecticut so that temperature checks are done upon entering the building. And all attendees are required to wear face coverings. So we do sanitization. We have a company that comes in and cleans. So we do, we are adhering to all of the guidelines.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, Peter.
Marcie, do you have any idea how many code changes has been from the last classroom to this year?
Well, it's a completely different curriculum this year. We're going over different chapters.
Well, do you know the code? Do you know how many code changes there's been?
I don't have the curriculum in front of me, and I'm not the person who does our curriculum, so I don't know how many code changes there have been.
How about you, Vinny? You know how many code changes there's been?
There are always code changes, and you could actually say there are many, but significant code changes this particular round, and the fact that we renew codes every 3 years and we're in 2-year cycles, I cannot think of any significant code change. Honestly, it's really nothing significantly changed in the code.
Right. And in my research that I had tried to do on my own, I cannot find any significant code changes that mandates, the need for this class. So that's my point.
These are different discussions.
It's my point. Sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Chuck Appleby. I do have the 2018 version of the plumbing code in front of me. And in the plumbing code shows the significant, and by the way, ICC also publishes a significant change from the 15 to the 18, and I've always used that for the curriculum stuff. So in here, you'll see the different black lines in the line items here. Maybe not. Let me try to, with changes in the codes, the different pages and different sections on drinking water treatment systems. There's so much here that I can show you. Potable water handling, valves outlet prohibited below grades, exceptions, changes to that discussions. There's a tremendous amount of stuff here that I've been using. I just couldn't put everything together to do the timeline that we needed last fall, as you guys know. So I just want to let you know this is the book, and these are the areas in which we go with. Plus, of course, we had the dry well situation going on. We have the future residential sprinklers for plumbers coming on board that we worked so hard for. Got that passed, and so that's all part of this 5-hour situation as well. So I could have gone on with the outline, but that's where we stopped. And it got approved by the boards, I believe, in October.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Do we have any other people that off the chat that want to talk?
Yes, we do. We have a full list, so I just want to keep working our way down through if that's okay with everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, Karen, who would be next, please?
Hello, Karen.
She might be working on it.
Sorry about that. Okay, hold on. Sorry about that. We have Kimberly Glassman who's raising her hand. And then I want to make sure you know under the Zoom webinar chat, you have a comment. It's from earlier from Kim Glassman, Gina Scamucci. I'm not sure how to say that, Scamucci. From Fred, and another one from Kimberly. So I just wanted to make sure you know that those are there too, and then let me know.
Okay, let's work our way down through. We'll bring Kimberly back on.
Okay.
Thank you. Hi, Kimberly, you're back on.
No, she
Sorry, I was just unmuting myself. Can you hear me?
No, yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you so much for letting members of the public speak again. I really appreciate that. I just want to say again that it sounds to me like there's a clear division here, Chairman Appleby, I know you and I haven't met personally before, but I have had many conversations with the deputy commissioner and the commissioner here at DCP, and it's my understanding that you've actually been in conversation with DCP for a couple of, not for, I think for a few months about possibly moving CE into an online format. So I was a little surprised when you said that that you were not as involved in this. It was suggested to me maybe even that this was your idea from the start, and maybe you can expand on that. But I also want to just say that I understand that when the governor signed the EO, or when he actually created the emergency order that we're all still in right now, the public health emergency order, and move in closing the school campuses, there was a lot of conversation and time with the Department of Education and all the superintendents around the state to create a structure that would allow for as easy a transition into an online format as possible. And included in that was conversations with internet providers to make sure that internet providers were getting internet access into homes where there wasn't before, so that students could access that online curriculum. So I just want to say that because, we have until October 30th when these licensees come due. And so that doesn't give this body or any of the providers a lot of time to make sure that they have all of the technology and all of the capability to move seamlessly into an online format. I think that I don't understand why Mr. Rosario's suggestion has been met with such pushback. I don't really understand, and maybe folks can help me to understand why there's such opposition to just suspending this just for a year. Who knows what the country or what the world's going to look like in a year? We may have a vaccine in a year and may be able to get back into our normal routines again, knock on wood. Or we may still be in a very similar situation, but at least this body has some time to develop some standards that go across the board, whether you're a non-union training program, a union training program, whether it's for the contractor license, for the journey person license, that you guys have created some standards for this online format that everybody can adhere to, and you're all prepared. And you've come up with a fee structure that is fair for everybody working from home, and you make sure that you're speaking with internet providers so folks can access this online curriculum. I just don't understand why there's such pushback to just suspending this for now while you guys develop these standards. And again, I want to say again, this fee structure is very bothersome to me. Marcie indicating that they charged $165 last year for their CE class. That's even more than the license itself. Now I'm glad that they've lowered that cost a little bit, but you're asking folks to pay over $250 to pay for being able to simply continue to work. And again, to Ms. Sheffy's point of people being just using their $600 stimulus check, that's almost half of a stimulus check, by the way, gone. And so I cannot stress enough that I just think that this is short-sighted. I cannot stress enough that I believe that this body should just suspend this requirement for the year. But if you're just so gung-ho and you want to just push this through and shove this down, then again, you've got to suspend any fee requirement and make this cost neutral to people. Thank you.
Thanks, Kimberly. Okay, who's next?
We have Mark. We have Mark Verino waiting to talk, and again, we have some people that have sent in a chat.
Marcel Verino. He may be
Mark.
from IMTI. That's Marcel. Can you bring Marcel on, please?
Marcel, are you there? You should be able to talk.
There he goes. Hello, Marcel.
You should be able to.
He just muted himself back again. Now he's gone.
Yeah, I did allow him to talk.
Might just take a second here. Let's let him boot up.
Allow him to talk. Okay, we should be able to hear him now.
I have his mute side in the slash through it.
All right, let me try.
So I don't think he can talk at this point. I know he's trying to go back and forth from what I'm seeing here on my end of it.
I'm trying.
Okay, I'm sorry. I may have had the wrong one. Okay. Marcel, can you hear us? Perhaps we could come back to Marcel.
It says from Marcel to all panelists, unmute Vanessa. Do you have a Vanessa there?
Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna unmute Vanessa.
Yeah, unmute Vanessa.
Vanessa, can you hear us? I did.
Vanessa is from IMTI as well, so Marcel and Vanessa are from the same organization, I believe.
So Vanessa should be able to speak now.
I still show the mute icon on her name.
Well, what it is I do one part of it on my end, and then from there, if they don't unmute themselves, then there's two parts to it. And I think that's what's,
Somebody send her a note to unmute.
Marcel should be able to speak too. So,
Can you send it again? Vanessa says to all panelists, can you send it again? So she must have trouble getting on the link. Why
And
we're
we got
waiting,
2,690p ones that are going to do this.
why we're talking about that, Ms. Brown sent a note that they have not discontinued enforcement, that they are still doing enforcement. So that was misconstrued.
So this is Pamela Brown, Director of Investigations. I wish to clarify and address a statement made by Kimberly Glassman. During the emergency declaration, we did not suspend our inspections and investigations. They are weighted for essential. They have to be essential for us to go out and investigate and inspect. I just wanted to clarify that point that was made.
Thank you,
Thank
Pam.
you.
Okay,
right.
maybe we'll pull, let's bring up,
Vanessa, I think we've got Vanessa back. Vanessa, can you hear us?
This guy's got.
Vanessa?
Hi, this is Marcel.
Oh, okay, it says Vanessa, okay.
We're,
You have to go in the other room. You have to go in the other room. It's mimicking your screen.
1 second, please. Hello.
Hello.
Okay. This is Marcel Verno. I'm with IMTI.
welcome, Marcel.
Not bad. Over the last, I guess now it's about 38 years that we have been backing the industry. Over the last 4 months, we have spent a lot of funds preparing to help the industry. We have followed all the guidelines. We have set up systems. We have 6-foot separations. We have all the pieces needed. We will do both we'll do both in-house and online. We prepared to do. We've been training our apprentices online for the last 6 months. Now they're back in school and they're operating in school. So before somebody comes in the building, they're tested. They go through questionnaire. They go to their classrooms. The classrooms are separated. Disinfectant is used in every room. Disinfectant is used after every session. They go to the shop. They're separated in the shop. So what I'm saying is that we are prepared to help the industry, and our cost for continuing education is $125. Okay, so just to give you some information, we've been following it for 5 months. We have done everything the state has asked. We have self-certified according to the state, and we have followed every guideline. Since about 2 months now, we've been doing classes in-house, and we have nobody getting sick or nobody getting to the point where they have to take a test. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcel.
Marcel, I got a quick question for you. How much is IMTL charging for the class?
125.
Okay, so it's across the board. And that's for online and in-person class?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Who's next do we have on the list? Karen, please. I see a cell number. I'm not sure who it is. The 860-422-3129.
Well, we have the list of attendees, but unless they're raising their hand, I'm not sure that they want to speak at this time. So that's what they should do, unless you want me to enable that.
If they have their hand up, I think we're all set.
They don't have their hand up. Oh, we got Mike Rosario wants to speak. He just raised his hand.
Okay, go ahead. Let Michael please in again, please.
Okay. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I just want to say again, I don't know why my question keeps being pushed off to the side and nobody wants to address it about suspending. I have legitimate concerns how I'm going to get this set up. And the plumbing board just keeps ignoring me. Why is this being rushed?
So can I answer that, Chuck? So my comment would be, we've heard from different providers who have been ready and getting ready and ready to put this on as an option again. What I'm hearing from you, Mike, is that it's an inconvenience. It's an inconvenience for everybody to operate like this. And we're only talking about 5 hours of P1 training. So everybody else seems to be on board with working around the major inconveniences. So I don't see a need to suspend it because people can still get it if they need it.
Melissa, you keep saying this is an option. What is the class? Are you saying we're going to make the whole thing optional, whether or not to take the continuing education?
No, we're voting on virtual versus classroom. That's the option. People can still do classroom, being spaced far enough apart. Everyone could still.
I'm aware. I'm aware.
That was the option for virtual. That's it. That's the only thing my motion's about is virtual.
All right, can we hear from, is the Commissioner of Consumer Protection, Michelle Siegel, still present with us?
Hi, yeah, I'm here. And I think this has been great and really healthy conversation. I've definitely been hearing from different people with different views. And I think this is like the exact purpose kind of having a board of experts to do this. I did want to kind of clarify a couple of things and make sure people understand the context of how this process will move forward. So, you know, at the end of this meeting, I guess depending on what people's views are, if the board makes a recommendation to the department, we can put that in the form of an executive order. It then needs to go to the governor's office. The governor's office would then themselves need to make a decision. Are they going to sign that executive order? Are they going to change it or do whatever? So it won't be, this won't be a point where a board votes and then that becomes the official decision. There are a couple of steps after. A couple of other things, just so people understand how these executive orders have been working. We've been dealing with a number of issues in various areas, is generally, well, one, I know there's been a lot of talk about fees. If the fees aren't in the statutes or are in our regulations, if it's just a private sector thing that people charge, there's really not an ability there's no law for the governor to modify or waive to change that. So it would be very hard for us to frame that as an executive order for the governor to suddenly say private sector businesses can't charge a fee for something they're offering. Also, you run the risk if you say you have to offer it for free that people just say, well, forget it, I won't offer it at all. And then you really get stuck. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. Another thing to keep in mind, you can obviously recommend whatever you want. There's been a range of, you know, keeping the deadline, but letting people do online and in class, extending the deadline for a couple months, extending the deadline for a year, or eliminating feed altogether. The further you push this out into, so at this point, the declared emergency ends in September. The further you push out things beyond that, the greater risk there is that that's not going to be something that they'll be comfort level with doing through executive order. You know, so eliminating CE altogether, for example, there could be a point where, you know, council and the governor's office says this is really something the legislature should do, and this is not something I should be doing by executive order. So the further away you go from addressing very specific needs and timeframes because of the pandemic and into broader issues, the greater the risk there is that that just won't become acceptable. That being said, you can obviously recommend what you want, and you know, we can take it from there. I just did want to make sure people understood what the kind of process will be and what things may or may not kind of ultimately result in a signed executive order that modifies the law. So with that, I am continuing to be here. I am sharing office space with my husband, so I'm keeping the video off so we don't have that distraction. But you know, thanks for kind of having this. I think it's a really healthy forum, and it's good to hear all the different viewpoints.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mike Rosario wants to say something as a response.
No, I don't.
Oh, sorry. Back with you, Michelle.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that you're aware of the chat, Gina. She did want to comment, and Fred, I'm not sure who it is. It may be an electrical provider, electrical CU provider. You know, so let me know if you wanted to address any of that.
Why don't you go with Gina? Gina Scumaci.
Yeah, let me just see if I can, give me 1 second here. Gina, can you hear us?
I can hear you fine. Can you hear
Yes.
me?
Yep.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Chairman and Committee, for allowing me to speak today. I am the Executive Director for the Center for Occupational Development and Education. And I agree this has been a very healthy discussion. And I have had personal one-on-one contact with, you know, many contractors through this entire COVID timeframe. Again, most of them have been working as essential employees. And personally, from a public health and safety, I think that we should follow through with continuing education. My recommendation, I do agree online. I've been getting calls really since March that, you know, can we have an online option? And I agree that that's a very strong option for some of our younger, technologically savvy contractors in the state. I do believe maybe a hybrid, which I've already started to investigate, options of doing a hybrid where we still do some in-person classes. I think it's important to have interaction. I mean, our instructors and our classes, I mean, it's much more than just posting something online. It's very interactive, and sometimes the discussions, you know, get into, you know, code issues that, you know, we have very interactive conversations with our instructors and our participants. And I have been in contact with several venues, with universities as well as hotels that have been doing some, you know, very rigorous sanitizing, fogging, that type of thing. And they've been, you know, obviously the governor is saying, you know, limited 50%, you know, possibly up to 50 people. Again, I wouldn't push anyone that is uncomfortable in a classroom setting, but I do have many people that are interested in still doing the classroom. It's what they've been doing. It's what they're comfortable with. And a lot of them are telling me, you know, honestly, Gina, we're in homes every day. We're, you know, supply houses. They're in contact with people every single day. So I don't want to minimize the risk of COVID. And I do believe masks, temperature checks, things of that nature are critical. But I think that it would be great to, you know, have this option. If they feel comfortable doing the classroom, they can do that. If they feel, you know, more inclined to want to do it online, then, you know, giving them that option as well. But I think to just discontinue it for the year, I mean, there are public health and safety issues, and, you know, that's why you are licensed, and that's why, you know, I feel it's very important that we, you know, follow through and continue like every other segment of society. You know, I just feel that we need to move forward, and we need to, you know, continue with the education. And I have many people that are, you know, wanting to take the class, and I'm sure, I don't know if the other providers can attest to that, but, you know, I'm getting hundreds of calls. They want to take their continuing ed, they want to move forward. So I don't believe that I have, you know, a lot of people in a panic where, you know, they're afraid to come to a classroom at this point. So those are my thoughts. Yes.
Thank you, Gina. Has anybody got any questions for Gina? And Gina, you are with Code, right? Provider Code, correct?
Yes, the Center for Occupational Development and Education, correct, Chuck?
Just want to make sure everybody is aware. Okay.
Chuck, I have a question.
Is code going to charge the same, the 125 as the other two providers?
I mean, we're definitely open. I mean, the past years, it's been 7 hours. We have facility fees. We've also provided, breakfast and lunch and a full printed bound manual, which I'm not sure everyone else has done. So our overhead has been a little bit higher, and, obviously our board can revisit reducing costs, being that we're going to 5 hours this year. We won't need to provide that lunch, obviously, but we'll still be providing a printed manual that basically mirrors the PowerPoint. They can take notes, that type of thing. So we do have that production cost as well as the overhead of the rental of the facility.
So what will be the cost to the P1 to take the class?
Well, we haven't reduced as of yet. Last year it was $190. We have not held a class as of yet. So,
Excuse me.
Yes, Chuck.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt. But as the commissioner has says, the cost has nothing to do with this. What the private providers charge, that's up to them to do. It's
that's fine, but I'm allowed to ask a question if I want to know.
Yeah, I know, but it's ridiculous to ask it, Jay. You know what your cost is to run a building and to run a class, and each provider knows their costs.
Chris, you can ask the questions you think are pertinent, and I'll ask the questions I think are pertinent.
I think it's kind of stupid.
Okay.
That's your
I
opinion.
appreciate your words of wisdom. Thank you.
Okay. Gina, thank you for coming on.
Chuck, I have a question.
Okay, sure, Peter, go ahead.
I'm hearing safety concerns. What safety concerns have been brought up to you? So what kind of safety concerns? I'm curious.
Safety concerns, I mean, the PPE or cleaning and disinfecting, social distancing, meeting the current DECD stuff. Exactly what's your question, Peter?
My question was, I heard that she had mentioned that there's some safety concerns out there. It sounds like that she's gotten some complaints that there's safety concerns with the plumber entering the homes and doing things like that. That's all I was concerned, what she's hearing from the public.
Well, let's ask Gina. Let's bring Gina back on for a moment. Is that okay, Peter?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Oops, hold on one second.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Gina, are you with us?
I am with you. Yes.
We have a question from one of our board members who wanted to ask you about the safety aspect of what you were hearing from individuals in the field.
Sure. I have not had any individuals in the field telling us about homeowners being concerned about safety. My reference to safety was earlier conversations. It was brought up about, the fact that COVID and having a public space and having continuing ed in a building. So that I was referencing that point of safety, but I've not had any true concerns from either homeowners or contractors at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Gina. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
Who do we have next, Karen?
We don't have any hands being held up. I think that I'm looking at the chats. I think you addressed the chats.
You have Fred online.
We did, and he, that's right. We have Fred's chat. Can you guys see the chat from Fred, or did you need me to read that, or I'm not sure.
Sure. Could you do that for us, Karen? Can you let us know what's, because I don't have it.
Yeah, this says from Fred to all panelists, I think the entire online training program needs an entire rethink. As attendees have mentioned, there are problems with tech for older members. Scroll down. Numerous other states provide online education for trade persons. These programs do not require interaction with anything other than a computer. To be sure, some of the programs may be less than stellar, but that could be remedied by proper vetting of providers. I think that the idea of CE is to show confidence in the trade. This would require some sort of testing. I think the future is online CE with some sort of simple testing procedures. So that's what he says in his chat. I believe he's still with us as an attendee. And that's from Fred. Did you want me to allow him to talk so I can at least identify him, or?
Yes, 'cause I'm not sure. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah,
At least we know where he's coming from.
Fred, can you hear us?
I hear you.
Okay. I could have had you read the whole thing. See that?
Okay.
Welcome, Fred. Could you identify yourself for the board?
My name is Fred Mertz. I'm an electrical provider, IQ Electrical Training.
Oh, welcome. Okay, thank you.
Okay. And I was listening to the entire program from the electrical side of things, and I decided I'd listen to the plumbing side of things to see, you know, to know which direction we're kind of going to be going. As far as continuing education classes that will be live, I'm not going to hold any live classes because I'm concerned about the pandemic and how it may proceed or how it might not proceed. One of the difficulties I have is that I book the rooms that I use for continuing ed 9 to 10 months in advance of the actual class. So to have it extend out to December 31st doesn't really help me because I would have to go rebook all the classes I might have because of the unknowns of what the progression of this pandemic is going to be. I've been watching with some concern the spikes in different states as they slowly open up. And to that end, that's why I've canceled all the classes. As far as the online Zoom classes go, 25 students at a time. Well, on the electrical side of things, both journeymen and master electricians take the class, and there's some 10,000 left to go that need to take a class this year. And somebody mentioned earlier in the program that you're going to have to run 40 classes. Well, it's going to be far more than that. As I mentioned in the little chat that I made, the technology issues for older students are going to be greater than for younger students. And even listening to this webinar today, the difficulty in getting people on and off and everything and raising hands, I'm thinking that I am just going to wait to see what happens for 2020 right now and not run any online classes. Having said that, I've already begun to have my web people design an online program that, as I mentioned in the chat again, that includes testing. You have a little section, we give you some code information, you answer a question. If you don't, well, there's a lot more to it than that, but it's not a difficult hill to climb. But I still think, and this is the final thought, there should be some sort of bar to get over in any continuing education class. You can't just warm a seat or sit in front of a computer. You have to demonstrate competency of some sort. So anyway, that's what I'm doing, and I'm just cluing in the plumbing board what I'm thinking. Okay?
Thank you, Fred.
Thank you.
Did Fred said he was a provider for electrical in Connecticut?
Right.
Yes, okay.
Yep.
Okay. Is there anything else we have there?
And we
I'd like
have,
to point out something Fred had mentioned. Fred had mentioned that, you know, part of quality training is evaluation, a quiz, test. The CHRO training that, again, keeps getting brushed aside, offers two things. It does offer an ability to ask questions of the person conducting the training, in this case, to CHRO. There's a email link to get there. And the other is, after each section, there's quizzes. You know, there's 4 or 5 questions, seeing if you comprehended the material presented. In no CEU to date has there ever been an evaluation offered. It's really people come and sit, they get talked at, there is discussion, that is definitely an advantage, the rapport, but there's no evaluation. And again, I keep thinking that, you know, as plumbers, we know the American Standard poster, it says the plumber protects the health of the nation. We know that one bad bug, Legionella, anything like that is a deadly thing, and that's our job, to protect the public. We take great pride in it. And as we foster something that could create a situation where the public becomes infected with a pathogen, It goes against our most core beliefs and what we do and the nature of our craft. That really should be considered. By offering it online comprehensively, it removes the burden of cost to people that are financially strapped. In the greatest economic downturn we will ever know, hopefully. It keeps people safe, and it offers the ability to get comprehensive inclusion of all the license holders. But again, it just keeps getting pushed aside. And I think because of the mercenary point that people make money on this, that we have to have these trainings because they're a revenue stream. I'm putting that on the table. It's my belief, personally. Fatigued by the framing of things as union, non-union, this guy, that guy, personal comments of a very unnecessary nature been tossed out here. The plumber protects the health of the nation. Please remember that.
Thanks, Vinny.
Kimberly Glassman is waving her hand, sorry. Just want to make sure you knew that.
Okay, Kimberly, please.
I know Melissa may need to be going soon
No,
as
I
well.
told them I'll be late.
Okay, Kimberly should be able to speak now.
Thank you so much. Just a couple of very quick comments here. Firstly, I did want to clarify, I did have an email forwarded to me from May 29th, wherein regarding a possible licensing issue, wherein an investigator wrote, and I quote, "Please note that we are not," and not is all in capitals, "conducting any licensing compliance inspections at this time due to COVID-19. So I wanted to just say that for the record, because I certainly wasn't trying to make a flippant comment. This was forwarded to me, and this is in writing from an investigator. So I'm very encouraged and relieved that the investigations unit director, Pamela Brown, came on and clarified that that is not the case, that they are still making field inspections. So I just wanted to say that for the record. Also, I know we've heard from some contractors and some providers here, and I just also want to say, I know I indicated in an earlier comment that I am a labor management organization, and that is true. I represent also the National Electrical Contractors Association of Connecticut, as well as the Mechanical Contractors Association of Connecticut, and both the MCAC and NECA signed on to, the presidents of both of those organizations signed on to a letter that was sent to Commissioner Siegel on May 11th, asking that the agency not move the CE classes into an online format. I'm happy to forward a copy of that letter to Mr. Appleby, Chairman Appleby, or to any other member on this board, so that can be disseminated to the entire body of this board, so folks know where these contractor associations that represent numerous contractors throughout the state are on this issue. They were pretty defiant and made very clear that they do not agree with the motion that you are considering here today. And the last thing I'd like to just mention is to speak to what Commissioner Siegel said. She did not say that the governor does not have the authority to weigh in on any fee structure. She indicated that she was unsure that he has that authority, given the fact that there is no fee structure set in statute. The governor has a very wide authority given under the public health emergency order that we're functioning in as a state in this moment. His executive authority is very wide and very broad. And so I cannot stress enough that I think that this body should take up Mr. Moore's motion, that you should include a suspension of fees in the motion that you pass. If the governor cannot include that in executive order, that's fine. Maybe he will punt that to the legislature and ask the legislature to take that up in a special session, and then they can certainly amend the statute and put a fee structure into the statute. So there's really nothing that prevents this body at all from including an motion or making a motion to suspend any fees associated with the online CE classes. And I, again, cannot stress enough that while my organization, the Foundation for Fair Contracting, and both the labor and management sides of this organization do not agree with the motion that's being considered by this body here today, we certainly agree with a suspension of all fees and for the CE online classes. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. Okay. All right, anybody else?
I'd like to also address another point made earlier. Chuck showed us how in the code book, amendments by addition are indicated by a vertical line, amendments by deletion by an arrow, an ICC, a dot, and an NFPA. And, you know, even if you had a 40-hour continuing education, some of it you couldn't cover, much of it's minutia, sometimes changes in language. But the fact is that both the International Code Council and the NFPA must publish for free all the codes that are adopted by the state of Connecticut because they're promulgated as law. It'd be no different than if you were driving down the freeway and the speed limits were covered by a blanket. You didn't know what the law was. So all of the code changes, all of them, 100%, are available free online to anybody that's in the industry. Simple login, and it's there. So we have all these mechanisms that comprehensively provide the required information, be it a deletion of a comma, an addition of a sentence, a deletion of a section. And we have the ability to protect the people that will be getting this information and utilizing it in the field, to protect the consumer. We have the potential in a state that has gotten a great handle on COVID pandemic to worsen the situation. We're thinking about asking people to quarantine that come in from out of state. We have many people, albeit in neighboring states, that hold Connecticut license that'll be crossing the border. How do we know where they were on vacation last week? Did they go to North Carolina? Right? So we are really setting up ourselves for potential for disaster. The providers are given liability. The Department of Consumer Protection accepts liability if they foster this. You really should think about this. We have the ability to get all of the information to all of the license holders by simply putting it online, just like the state has done with other agencies, include an evaluation, include a method for feedback, and that's the truth. But it just doesn't seem to be convenient for some people.
So that's what my motion was really about. I don't think, from what we've heard from the commissioner and everybody today, that their plumbers right now are required by law to take it. So that's a different issue as to eliminate CEUs. The second thing is we were trying to offer the virtual option for those out-of-state plumbers, and we don't have the ability to, I don't think it's this board's place to set the fees. So as the commissioner put, we can make a recommendation from our board and then it goes to the next level. So I would like to just say my motion stands, and I don't know what we do with J's because, as Richard pointed out, we don't dictate fees. So do we include Jay's motion? Or, I mean, since that's not our place to talk about fees in the public sector and the private sector, can my motion just stay and we can vote on it? I mean, I think we've heard from everybody and we've heard from both sides. And, you know, we've heard, Kim says that, you know, her members are asking to eliminate it, but we've heard from different people saying that their contractors have been calling them, asking them to do it. So I think we have a balanced discussion. So can we put it?
Two hands. Wait, sorry. There are two hands. Just
Oh,
so you
okay.
know. It's up to. Should I allow them to
Start,
talk?
Paul Hurlburt. We haven't heard from Paul Hurlburt, I'm sorry, Hurlburt.
Okay, let me do this. I'm going to allow to talk. Paul, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay.
Thanks for letting me address the board. I'm the vice president of the Connecticut Well Water Association, and we've had, like everybody else, had to put everything on hold. We are considered, as everybody else, essential workers, so technicians are in the homes and trying to be as safe as possible. And I guess, we've been trying as an association to put together our educational program online, along with some in-class training, because we're a little bit different. Well, we're actually very different than what P1s are required for as far as continuing education. But, I think it's inevitable that online training is where it's going to have to go, just from a timing standpoint, to allow people to become a better educated workforce. But I guess I don't understand what the harm would be in doing a suspension of the October deadline for the education if associations and businesses that are offering the training can come up with a more comprehensive and user-friendly online program. I think also having the ability to prove that you did go through a course, and there's not necessarily a test, but at least something showing that you've done it is critical too, because we do want an educated workforce. So the push to try to get this done by the end of the year, or by October, seems a little hasty. That I think everybody so far that I've listened to here agrees that education is important, however we get it. I don't know how comfortable I'm going to be sitting in a classroom. I don't feel comfortable going out to restaurants right now. Will that change with time? I hope. But I think there's a lot of sides to this we all really need to listen to and say, what is the rush? Why can't we do this smart? Online training is absolutely where all industries are going to go. So let's be smart about it and not put people in danger, but also come up with better programs that are more user friendly, especially for the older people like me, that I'm also computer illiterate, but I'm proud that I made it this far. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Okay, so we're back. Is there anybody else there now?
Mike Rosario has his hand raised.
Okay, go ahead. Bring Mike back again, please.
Okay. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So I just wanted to bring it up again about the temporary suspension. I didn't say it would take me 40 classes to run my membership like someone stated. It would take me 40 weeks at 3 classes per week, 25 per classroom online. That's what the document says with the email. You could only have 25 people in attendance on an online class. So how is the online class going to work? What type of documentation do you get after you take the course? Are you supposed to print something up like OSHA 10 when you're done? What happens if the individual doesn't have a printer? What happens if the individual doesn't have a computer? Let's face it, some people do not have computers. And I hate to say it, some people don't even have OSHA 10. It's a fact of life. As Local 777, we have it in our contract that people get paid by direct deposit. And believe it or not, at this day and age, there's still a couple people that don't have an avenue for direct deposit. Why? I don't know. Well, like the gentleman Paul just said before me, why is this being rushed? All we're asking for is a temporary suspension so everybody could regroup, come up with a protocol, a clear plan, so we could move forward on how we're going to do this. Right now, it's being rushed. Yes, let's start online. We're going to do it starting next week or whenever we're going to start it. But there's no clear plan. I don't see it in writing in front of me. Does anybody else have that plan in writing in front of them? Now, as far as what Melissa said about motions, I believe this board is run by Robert's Rule of Order. So Robert's Rule of Order, you have to vote on Jay Moore's motion first because it's an amendment to Melissa's motion. And then you would move on. However, if Jay's motion passed, then Melissa's motion is mute. And that's pretty much what I have to say, but there should be a waiver for this year. I just don't get why we can't have a waiver just for this year. The year's almost over. It's going to be July 1st next week. It will give us a few months to be able to regroup, come up with all the permanent, all the information that we're going to need to have these online classes. I just don't understand why this is a rush. And then come January or December or November or February, whenever it may be, then we could start running everybody through. We're just asking for a temporary suspension, and it keeps getting brushed under the table. And I just don't understand why.
Thanks, Mike. Okay. Can we vote on Jay's motion? Sorry about that. And what is that motion?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Before you do, I believe it's out of order because we, as a board, have no control over cost, what these providers do charge or don't charge. Our directive is not what the cost is. If the provider wants to not charge, that's their business. That's up to the providers, not up to this board to tell you to charge or not charge. So I believe, as the gentleman before us said, we're following Robert's Rules of Order. So I believe that motion is out of order because it does not affect what we can do and can't do. So I believe Jay's motion.
Do we have a, gotcha. Do we have legal assistance for the plumbing board in this meeting, Commissioner Siegel?
Julianne's on.
Hi, I'm obviously I'm not counsel to the board, but I am counsel to the Department of Consumer Protection. Although I won't weigh in on some of the larger legal issues, I can say that fee structure is not set forth in the scope of what the plumbing board or DCP regulates in terms of the cost of courses. So we have no authority over what those fee structures are set.
Okay, so my question is, do we vote on this or not, on this particular Jay's motion?
The board can vote as it sees fit. The question is whether or not it has any bearing on what the state has legal authority to do or what the board has legal authority to do. The board voting that there would be a cap on the cost or that there would be no cost would not set forth law. So, I mean, you can provide a recommendation for what you would like to see the governor's office do, but again, based on statute, we do not regulate the cost of these courses. That is up to private course providers to set their own fees based on their cost.
So it's outside the course of what we have control over.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, with that said, then again, this is going to be a recommendation to the governor. So I say that we vote on Jay's motion, and then and Jay, if you could repeat your motion on the fee structure for us.
Yep, my motion was to suspend the fees.
Suspend fees, okay, for 2020 cycle.
Correct.
And that would be just this year for contractor and journeyman as well next year, or just this one cycle?
This year.
Okay, very good, as contractor side. Okay, all in
Mr.
favor,
Chairman.
say aye.
Mr. Chairman, well,
Oh, I'm sorry, you know what, we
wasn't
need a.
part of the
we need a
motion
sec-
also to suspend the CEUs?
Who's this now, I'm sorry?
This is Vinny.
Hi, Benny, okay.
I was under the impression that the motion was in combination to suspend the CEUs themselves until further.
No, that's a
No, it's
law.
fees, it's fees,
Just the fees.
correct.
You have to ask for discussion after you get a second. I believe Peter Alfieri seconded Jay's motion. So does Peter accept this to continue to second Jay's motion?
I do.
Okay,
Now
any
you can
further
have
discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Any further discussion? All
Chairman,
in favor?
the only thing that you may want to consider also is determining when you're putting this forth related to suspension of fees, since this is during a portion of the period that people can get their continuing education, you probably want to be explicit about when you're doing that for. So for example, is it for starting tomorrow through the end of the declared emergency, which ends on September 9th? Does it exceed past the end of the emergency on September 9th and through the end of the calendar year? You may want to add some specificity as to when exactly you'd be proposing waiving those fees for.
Jay, was that just the fees for this one cycle here through December 31st?
Yeah, I believe my motion was also to waive the CEUs along with the fees.
My recollection.
We might have to go back to the tape.
Right. Is there any way, Karen, we can go back to the tape?
There is, I don't know how to do that.
Can we take a 10-minute break and see if we can look into that, perhaps?
Can
Somebody
I,
in IT?
can I amend the motion of Jay's to include suspension of the CEUs and suspension of fees?
Yes.
Okay, let's vote.
Okay. All in favor of suspension of fees?
As
and-
amended or not?
As amended. And what else was there?
CEUs.
Suspension of the CEUs until further notice.
Well, it can't be suspension of fees to further notice because you have Jay that says through December 31st. You can do it through December 31st, or you have to have a separate amendment to do the CEUs through the calendar, through our calendar year, which is October to October.
Then suspension of the CEUs and the fees until at least December 31st.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
I'd like a vote by roll call, please.
Yes, okay. Let me just start that way. We'll start with Joyce Topshe,
Opposed.
Melissa Sheffy,
Opposed.
Vinnie Valenti,
In favor?
Jay Moore,
In favor.
Peter Alfieri,
In favor.
Chris Bowman,
Opposed.
I see a tie vote. Does people see that? 3-3. Okay, and my vote will be no as well. So 4-3.
So can we vote on my motion now?
Yes.
Before you do that, can you please clarify exactly what that motion was for, the one that you just voted on? I mean, I would just like clarification.
I believe finally that the motion was amended to suspend fees and the CEUs until December 31.
2020.
Yes.
To suspend fees and CEUs until December 31st, 2020.
Correct.
Okay.
I'd like to offer another amendment to the motion.
Wait, we already voted.
No, I'd like to offer a different amendment.
Wait, do we vote on the one I originally started with, or does he keep amending?
The amendment goes before, you voted on one amendment, now he wants to make another amendment. You have to vote on the amendment before you can vote on the
Okay.
original.
See if I can frame this shortly. You can see the consensus and the direction is that the board will likely vote to host some sort of online training. My amendment would be, if the board votes to have online training, that it is offered in the same manner that the CHRO offers it in regards to the Time's Up Act.
Which is what?
Which is the agency posted the training online with an evaluation, with a chance to communicate any questions, and it's offered free.
You can't tell the private people what to do.
There's nothing to do with the private people. It's
Sure
to do
does.
with the state agency offering this continuing ed, like it offers sexual harassment training, both very important issues. There's no reason that it could not be done. Don't have to have CEUs here. You could do it in another way. The advantages, again, are comprehensiveness of participation. The private agencies still can offer it because they still do offer the CHRO training for a fee. So it's not that the CEUs could not be offered by a private entity. It's just that in addition, that the DCP offer the training in the same way that CHRO offers a training in accordance with the Time's Up Act.
Yeah, but you
It
can't tell
protects
them,
the health of the nation.
you can't tell them they can't charge a fee.
No, it's not what I'm saying, Chris. If a private provider wants to offer continuing ed, OSHA 10 and 30, sexual harassment training, they can, really has nothing to do with that. All I'm saying is that as an additional avenue, that the DCP offer the continuing education in the same manner CHRO offers sexual harassment training as framed by the Time's Up Act.
I just need to interject here. This is going in a direct, DCP does not have staff that's trained to offer continuing education. We don't have the resources. It also puts the government now in the business of undercutting sort of the private sector. So there was discussion about how existing CE providers would have trouble just shifting an approved curriculum in their training to online. There would be a huge fiscal note on this. I would actually have to hire different staff to create this curriculum. So there's also not a statute, again, to be waived. So to try to, by executive order, have the governor say DCP needs to create a continuing education class, put it online, and offer it for free, I think we're moving down a path that realistically DCP does not have the staff to, as a practical matter, do. So this is not like sort of an executive orders type thing. You're basically just saying, hey, the board wants DCP to take over continuing education for the state of Connecticut. You can ask us to do this, but I am just letting you know in advance, I don't have continuing education trainers as part of our agency. So that just keep that in mind. that's not something we are equipped to do.
Okay, well, with that said, can I make a motion for a recommendation that the commissioner seek a waiver for continuing education from the governor through an executive order? And the plumbers that wish to pursue the online class can continue to do that?
I want them to do it if they get a waiver.
I will temporarily rescind my motion in order that we can address Jay's motion.
Yeah, now, at least now you're talking about it. So there's a statutory requirement for CE. And so I thought that was the motion that just failed, was to allow for a waiver of CE, but maybe I'm getting all these things confused. But at least there's a statutory thing, and then it, that could be proposed. Again, you are kind of suggesting something that does extend beyond the pandemic, but that's at least within the realm of something that's could be pitched as an idea, and then whether it's accepted or not would be kind of decided in the future.
We did just vote on that.
Yeah, that's what we voted on.
That's just, you're just rewording what we just voted. I would like to move the original motion to a vote.
Okay, let's do it.
I made an amendment. I'd like to make a recommendation that the commissioner seeks a waiver for continuing education from the governor through an executive order. And for the plumbers that wish to pursue that, an online class can continue to be credited for the next round continuing education to schools.
Need a second.
Second. I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion?
I still need clarification. This is Joyce. Can you clarify what this motion is and how it's different from the other one?
Can you clarify that, Jay, please?
Yeah, I'm looking for a waiver for continuing education through executive order by the governor.
Okay, so you removed the fee issue.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Are we ready for a vote?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Starting with Joyce. On that motion by Jay, how do you vote?
Opposed.
Okay. Melissa?
Opposed.
Vinny?
In favor.
Jay?
Favor.
Peter Alfieri.
In favor.
Chris Bowman.
Opposed.
Okay. That is a 3-3 tie again. My vote is a no.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move the original motion, please.
Okay. We have a second. We have had discussion.
Can we repeat the original motion?
Repeat the original? Sure.
Hang on. It is the Plumbing and Pipework Examining Board hereby requests that the commissioner seek an amendment by executive order to section 20-334D-1C2 of the regulations for temporary approval to allow the plumbing continuing education virtual live interaction classroom online classes in addition to what was already approved. The approval shall be in accordance with the document entitled, quote, Instructions and Requirements for Approved Providers Requesting Temporary Approval for an Online Virtual Live Interaction Classroom, end quote, dated May 8th, 2020. This executive order shall expire on December 31st, 2020. We already have a second.
We've already had discussion. All in favor say, I'm sorry, we'll start with Joyce.
Wait, the commissioner wants to speak.
Oh.
Sorry, I just wanted, because we had a similar motion come up before, and if we could clarify or amend the motion so DCP is entirely clear. When you say the executive order expires December 31st, does that mean people have until December 31st to complete their CE, or simply that online classes can continue being offered till that date? In other words, the deadline remains when it is, but online classes can continue for a few months into the next cycle? Or are you saying the entire deadline you are recommending be moved? And
Well,
if you could,
actually, that's a good question. What I meant originally was that this virtual would expire on December 31st. But if we made it so that the cycle goes extended, maybe that helps with Mike's concerns with getting it done before October.
yeah,
But
I'm going to stay out of how you want to do it, but I don't want half of you to think you've extended the cycle and half of you think you've just extended out online, because I have to make a single proposal. And again, I still don't even know how long of an extension will ultimately be deemed acceptable for an executive order, but I at least want your recommendation to me and my proposed executive order to match up with everybody thinks they're voting on. So if somebody could maybe either in some way amend the executive order so it's entirely clear what's happening with the deadline, that would be great.
As a second of the original motion, I would ask the motion maker, Melissa, to extend that through October 31st of 2021. And that takes it for that cycle.
Can we do that, Chuck?
I don't know.
As long as you as the motion maker agree to that, I as a second agree to it, it can be done.
So how do you answer that question online when you renew your license? Did I take my continuing education? How do you answer that question if you haven't done it?
Okay, I would say the providers, for the people that go online for the virtual, and they have to sign in that, like we are now, that we're taking a class, that the provider would send them a certificate and provide the state with the name of the people that did take it, like they do now. Nothing would change.
So if I have a P1 and I renew it in October and I choose to take the class in February of 2021, how do I answer that question legitimately?
That because of the extension.
So I sign, okay.
Because of the extension that we're going to October 31st of 2021, that you have the certificate or the provider has sent your name in, because we've extended to that far so that everybody has a chance to do it either virtual or in classroom, like everybody's concerns.
So I sign up for this and I automatically get my certificate and I'm good to go?
Your instructor would send you your certificate like you would usually pick up at the end of the class. Or probably in your case,
so I can virtually just pay for the class and never go and not have to sit through it.
Okay, so just to make it simple, let's leave it alone at the cycle ends when it normally does, and I'm asking for the extension of the virtual online CEUs will expire on 12/31/20. That option will expire on 12/31/20, because to Jay's point, that would be confusing. I thought it'd be good for extra time, but let's just leave it away.
They need to have this done by October 31st before renewal.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so let's leave it alone as the original. Thank you, Commissioner, for bringing that up.
But if we really have an October 31st, 2020 deadline right now for P1s, right?
Right.
Correct.
And the ability to get even all the P1s, and we don't just do our membership, we have open shop come here. So it really, logistically, as been brought up earlier, how in the world are we going to get even all of us combined, all the P1s done by October 31, so they can check the box in good faith that they've done their continuing ed and not face $650 fines in the future?
That's why Melissa originally extended it to December 31st.
That doesn't extend the obligation to do your CEU by October 31st.
So again, since I'm not a plumber, I don't check a box. So if we extended it to 12/31/20, 2020. Does that make it easier for everybody to get it done by then?
At renewal, when you renew your license, there's a checkbox saying, I have completed my continuing ed. That has to be done prior to renewal by October 31st under current law.
I think Commissioner Siegel has to chime in on this. If, because of October 31st, if we take this executive order, we ask for the executive order to go to December 31st, are they going to be okay submitting their paperwork till December 31st of this year?
I guess first step is we need to be really clear on what your recommendation is going to be. But let's say you recommend online be available and that the deadline extend. I think, and then it goes to the governor and they agree. It's possible that only one of those two things happen. But let's say both of those are signed. So the governor signs that executive order doing both things. We would obviously need to then work with our licensing staff to figure out how to change the question on the application where people, you know, renew in October and commit that they understand that either they've taken CE or they understand that they are obligated to complete it by such and such a date and affirm that they will do that. So, you know, figuring out that will be sort of the first is if you even recommend allow, because now you will get into now this CE falls into the next cycle a little, but so if you even want to do that, but and then if the governor approves it, we would then have to figure out how to change language on our application, presumably.
Seems we do have a couple of other hands raised, but you know, I'm looking back at the last audit and the amount of time and effort by the agency, by the providers to get people copacetic with the CEUs they missed, how to work with the AVC letters, and host another 6 makeup classes for those that wanted to reduce their fines. If we start moving hard deadlines that are set by statute and we have subjectivity to the requirements, we're kind of opening that box up again of all this effort and time that we should be training. We should be doing our core training. As Mike brought up earlier, we're not revamping our training. We're completely rebuilding from ground up. We are in such a situation that's going to require a dedication of time and money, personnel, resources, properties. You know, we're really, as we amend and try to make this fit in this calendar year, we're going to make problems for next year and the year after for the enforcement folks, for the providers. And the other thing is, let's say this motion passes, we have 0 guidelines on how to conduct a training. So you say tomorrow you can start doing online training until December. Well, how? What's the platform? What are the evaluations? There is no parameters on how to do this. And if you look back at when we suspended the secondary schools and primary schools, and each school district came up with their own a la carte menu, you know, kids would be done by noon with a school day that they started at 10 a.m. if they did it. So I mean, we're really going out in the weeds here.
Okay, so I'm going to keep my motion
We
exactly
really
the way
are. And we're just creating more problems.
Here are the guidelines, Vinny. It was part of my motion. Everybody has those. We got them emailed out with our packet this morning.
That's not part of the motion. Those are not part of the motion. They're not approved.
No, I made it part of the motion, Vinny. That was part of the language of the motion. So I'm
there's
gonna
been no discussion of those guidelines, and I'm looking at about 20 bullet points that the providers have not had a chance to weigh in on. You're taking something the electrical board has discussed and saying, well, that's good for the plumbing board.
Okay, so
They
anyway,
took the time to discuss it, but we're not allowed to?
we had our discussion. You had it in advance. We had our discussion. I'm going to leave my motion the way it is, and it will be The plumber's expiration remains exactly the way it is in October 31st. And I'm asking that my motion says December 31st for virtual options. That, I'm going to leave those dates the same. Thank you, Commissioner, for that. So I think we're ready for a vote. Chuck.
Starting with Joyce,
In favor.
Melissa,
In favor.
Jay Moore,
Not in favor.
Vinnie Valenti.
Opposed.
I'm sorry, I skipped over Peter Alfieri, I'm sorry.
I'm opposed.
Vinnie Valenti,
Still opposed, on the side of science.
Chris Bowman.
In favor.
We have a 3-3 tie, and I say in favor 4-3.
Okay, everybody, I have to leave. I'm sorry, but I have to go.
So that motion that was just voted on is what you read way back in the beginning, not changed, with the last sentence being this executive order shall expire on December 30th, 2000. And that was what was voted upon, correct?
That's correct.
She did clarify that the deadline to complete CE doesn't change, and I think the way the executive order is worded is consistent with that, but we should make sure that's in the minutes too.
That it was clarified that the deadline for the CE requirements will not change.
Right, so that remains in October, although the online option continues, as I understood is how Melissa phrased her thing. Okay.
Hey, Karen, can you let Mike Rosario speak, please?
I'm sorry, guys, I have to go. Since this is all set, I think we passed, or we voted, correct, Chuck?
Yep, we're gonna move forward.
Mr. Chairman, this is Joyce. I have to also leave. I have another meeting I'm supposed to be at. I just want to make sure you're not going to have any more motions on this topic.
I think the only thing we have, I think the only thing we have now is the proposed well drilling regs and
I do plan to make another motion regarding these.
I think we're not going to have a quorum if the two of us leave the meeting.
Correct.
Okay, so
Well, then I'd like to make the motion right now.
Vinny, we've already voted. You can, I mean, Chuck, what do you want to do? I mean, I really have to go.
We've already voted, I realize that.
It's a separate motion.
All right, so go ahead.
I would like to ask that the Department of Consumer Protection research the viability of offering continuing education online through the agency, again, in the similar fashion the CHRO does with the Time's Up Act. The commissioner mentioned that staffing and costs are an issue, but I would like to know what that would be.
Okay, do you have a second? Let's vote, come on.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Any more discussion?
She could have a time limit, a time limit?
I can't
Okay, starting with
put
Joyce.
constraints on what's required.
Okay, with no more discussion, we're gonna vote. Joyce Topshe,
Opposed?
Melissa Sheffy,
Opposed?
Vinnie Valenti, please.
In favor?
Jay Moore,
Favor.
Peter Alfieri,
In favor.
Chris Bowman.
Opposed.
Okay,
No.
3-3 tie. I say no. 4-3.
There's been some hands raised in the chat, and there's a few people that would still like to get their word in, and one of them is one of the premier instruction providers, and one of them represents thousands of plumbers in the state of Connecticut, and I think they should be heard.
I think I can't stay, I'm sorry. So this is, a lot longer than I plan on staying. We voted.
Mike Rosario would like to talk. Please, let him in, please.
Who was the second on that motion? It was Vinny, and who seconded that? I'm sorry.
I did.
Before we move on.
Pete Alfieri. Pete Alfieri. Sorry, Karen.
Okay, thank you, Peter. It's
Mike's welcome to talk. Since there's going to be no other votes, I have to go. I apologize.
And Chuck, I have to leave as well. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Please
thank
let
you,
Mike
Joyce.
speak.
Thank you, Melissa. Okay, let Michael speak, please.
Okay.
I want to voice my displeasure that I've been trying to speak for the last half hour, and I'm going to petition this meeting because I wasn't allowed to speak. And it was totally wrong how this meeting was run, Chuck. I should have had more opportunity. My hand was up. I was trying to ask to speak, and I got totally blown off. I totally agreed with Melissa Sheffy and Chris Bowman's amendment to extend until October 2021. Like Melissa said, that would have addressed my concerns on how I'm going to run all these people through continuing ed by October of this year. I can't do it, Chuck. It's going to take me 40 damn weeks to run everybody through. How am I going to do that by October 31st? I didn't even have a chance to speak on it. There's a lot of hostility in this meeting between two groups, and I don't understand why. All right? But the continuing ed should have been extended. It's a disservice that this plumbing board is doing to the licensed plumbers out in the field. There is no way you're going to be able to get everybody done by October 31st. No freaking way. It should be extended until next year. It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong.
Thank
And
you,
you
Mike.
guys should reconsider extending it. You shoved it down everybody's throat today, especially not letting the public speak. Everybody else was on unmute. If we were meeting in person, I'd be able to raise my hand and speak. I never had the opportunity during any of the amendments or anything. I got completely shut out. This meeting should be null and void.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think we can continue with anything else because we don't have a quorum. You don't have, you need a quorum to continue the meeting.
Correct.
So because we do not have enough members for the meeting has to stop now. And whatever we didn't discuss or whatever's on the agenda will have to go to the next meeting.
In August. And our next board meeting is in August
4th, I believe.
August 6th.
6th, I'm sorry.
August 6th, and then the following meeting after that would be November 5th.
Correct.
Okay. That's it for today. Okay. We're shutting down. Karen, you can shut off the tape.
Okay.
Have a good day, Joe.
Everybody.